So let me ask you something. What if the key to modernizing our oldest industries, we're talking architecture, engineering, construction, doesn't come from the newest generation, but from the one we always seem to forget? Today we are diving deep into how GenX, of all people, might just hold the blueprint for the future. It's a massive question, right? And you see it everywhere. Industries that have been around forever are hitting a wall. The old ways of doing things, they just aren't cutting it anymore. There's this huge gap between how things have always been done and what the next generation actually needs to survive, let alone innovate in a world that changes by the minute. And this really gets to the heart of the problem. You've got what we could call the boomer blueprint. It's all about tradition, it's conservative, and it's very top-down. The whole, if it ain't broke, don't fix it mentality. But the challenges we're facing now, everything from sustainability to digital transformation, they demand something completely different. They need agility, disruption, and a culture that actually empowers people to solve problems from the ground up. So, who can possibly bridge this massive gap? Well, the answer might just lie with the one generation we almost never talk about in these conversations. The original quiet architects of disruption. That's right, meet Generation X. Born between 1965 and 1980, they are the classic middle child, totally sandwiched between the massive, culture-defining boomers and millennials. But you know what? Being overlooked like that, it gave them a really unique perspective and a very, very specific set of skills. To really get Gen X, you have to understand this one term, the latchkey generation. As divorce rates went up and more women joined the workforce, these kids would come home from school to an empty house. They had their own key, let themselves in, and basically had to figure things out on their own for hours every single day. And here's the thing, this wasn't a bug in their childhood, it was a feature. It literally forged their character. And that whole experience, it created a completely different kind of psychology. The unsupervised freedom of a 70s childhood wasn't about neglect. It was actually about trust. And it had this incredible impact on how their brains developed. And there's real science to back this up. Neuroscientists have actually found that being told to just go outside and be home before dark wasn't just fun and games. It literally rewired their brains. It built creativity, critical thinking, and this amazing ability to figure stuff out without a grown-up telling them what to do every 5 seconds. What came out of this was this unique psychological toolkit, an internal locus of control. This deep down belief that you are in charge of your own success. A calibrated sense of risk, which you can only learn from falling off your bike and getting back on. Creativity that literally came from being bored. And resilience. The ability to fail and get back up because, hey, there was no one there to hand you a participation trophy. And all of that rolled up into one simple, powerful mindset. They weren't the generation of endless meetings and talk. They were the generation of action. They just got it done, quietly, without needing a big show. Okay, so we get the psychology. It makes sense. But where's the proof? How did this whole latchkey kid mentality actually end up changing the world? Well, it's funny, because the very same traits that got them labeled as slackers or cynics back in the day, their skepticism, their tendency to question authority, well, those turned out to be the absolute perfect fuel for innovation. They didn't just accept the way things were, they challenged it. And in doing so, they basically built the modern digital world. Just look at this timeline for a second. Amazon, Google, SpaceX, YouTube, Twitter. Think about it. These aren't just companies. These are the absolute pillars of our reality today. And every single one was either founded or pioneered by a member of Generation X. They took that independent problem-solving brain of theirs and applied it on a global scale. This right here is their unique superpower. Gen X is the last generation that can actually remember what life was like before the internet. But they were also the first to grow up with computers and build the digital world we live in. They understand both sides of that coin, which makes them the ultimate bridge between the past and the future. So the big question is, how can you actually teach this mindset? How can Gen X leaders pass this torch? Well, it's not just some abstract vibe. It's actually a structured approach that anybody can learn and apply. And it's called the 5P Playbook. So here it is, the 5P framework. It's really a way of thinking that just nails the Gen X approach. It moves in a really logical way, starting with the why, that's your purpose, then the who, the people involved, then the current how, the process, and only after all that do you even touch the what, the platform, and the product. It's such a simple but powerful way to break down any problem. Now, the real power of this whole framework is where it starts. It doesn't start with some cool new technology or a pre-baked solution. It starts with the absolute fundamentals. What problem are we even solving here? And for whom are we solving it? It forces you to start with empathy, which is, and always will be, the bedrock of real innovation. And this is so critical because this is where so many projects just go off the rails. People try to throw technology at a problem without ever really understanding the current reality. This framework forces you to map out the existing process, how things work right now, before you even think about trying to change it. You have to understand the how before you can ever hope to improve it. And it all comes back to this one core idea. People innovate, not technology. Technology is just a tool. That's it. Real, meaningful innovation comes from how people use that tool as part of a smart process to solve a real human problem. The focus is always, always on the people. All right, so we've got a generation that was literally forged by independence. And we've got a super practical framework for making change happen. So how did these two things come together to pass the torch and, well, build the future? This is pretty much how it works. GenX's natural, fierce independence, well, that helps them foster real autonomy in the people they mentor. Their built-in experience with taking smart risks, that encourages the next generation to be bold, but not reckless. And the 5P mindset gives these emerging innovators a repeatable, structured path to follow. It's the perfect combo of mindset and method. This quote really redefines what we even mean when we say innovation. A cool idea? That's just an invention. A slightly better workflow? That's just an improvement. True innovation only happens when you can actually scale that idea and make it a repeatable, operational part of the system. That's the real goal. And this, right here, is the ultimate takeaway. That quiet, forgotten middle child generation has exactly what it takes, both the psychological toolkit and the practical framework to guide the next wave of innovators. They can teach them not just how to have ideas, but how to actually build those ideas into lasting, transformative change. Which really just leaves us with one final thought to chew on. In this mad rush for constant digital progress, maybe, just maybe, the most valuable lessons we can learn come from the people who still remember a world without it. What do you think?